Hello, and welcome back to From the Angels and Beyond. I am Krystal, and it's been a little while since I've come on here and put on a little longer video, but just a few things that have been kind of coming up lately, and just wanted to share. So, I myself have been on a spiritual path or journey since around 2015, when I kind of went through not kind of, when I went through my awakening, when I decided and where I understood that there was something greater and something bigger and a bigger purpose to my own life. And the way that had been going, the path that I was on, was leading me to honest depression, anxiety. I was constantly depressed. I was constantly anxious. I had a lot of anger. Was dealing with a very toxic and an abusive relationship, and it just broke me down to the point where I just didn't know who I was anymore. I didn't know what my purpose was in life. I was a nurse, so I was used to constantly giving of myself. I was also a new mom, or fairly new mom. I had a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old at the time, and it just was a lot, and it was a lot to process. It was a lot to deal with. I was changing on a very rapid pace. Around that time, I'd gone through a separation. We had tried a trial separation. It was probably about 2016 to 2017, roughly about a year. We had kind of like a trial separation, and then we tried to work it out. And in 2018, that's when it was that's when it was officially over and done, and I had enough strength and courage to actually end the relationship for good. Haven't looked back since. We co-parent, so we obviously still speak to each other and see each other, and we have a very unique relationship in terms of co-parenting goes. And yeah, so lately I've been noticing a lot of old patterns and old cycles returning, and it's just really weird when you're not in a relationship with somebody, but you also have to co-parent, and we're kind of in a unique circumstance where he does still spend time here. And again, everybody's family is different, and everybody is able to cope and do things differently. And so it's not a judgment. And I don't want any judgment for how we choose to co-parent. But so yeah. So we often share the same space. But we're also still on very different pages. And so that has been a challenge in itself, is moving myself forward and doing things differently for myself and for my kids, while at the same time dealing with somebody that is not on their own path, that is on their completely different path, and is not anywhere close to delving into spirituality or anything beyond this realm. And that's fine. Totally fine. That's his journey. That's his path. And I'm not going to knock him for it. But I just have noticed lately where it was like really old cycles coming back to rear its ugly head, and to see what's what. Like, all right, so certain issues have come up. And I noticed even this weekend, when there was a certain issue or there was something that came up that would have like fucking thrown me over the edge, would have pissed me off to the point where like I would have just been mad the whole fucking entire weekend. I would have been mad the whole entire day, and I handled it like a fucking champ. Like, maybe still could have improved a little bit, but I am not anywhere close to where I was now than when I was back in the day, and when there was a lot of things that were just really triggering. And so I have to give myself credit, and I have to give myself props. And if you have come to a place where you are also dealing with something that you thought you dealt with a long time ago, and it's now just kind of coming back up, just know that you know, if you actually take stock and you look at how you handled a certain situation now versus when you did back then when it initially came up, look at how much progress you've made. And I can guarantee you that if you know that you've made leaps and bounds in terms of progress, then you should know that you're probably handling life differently and handling stressors differently. And yes, life is going to throw you loops and curveballs and all sorts of things. But if you're able to deal with the certain situations in a more elevated way, in terms of you're not reacting to a certain thing, then give yourself the credit where the credit is due. Okay. A lot of times we like to beat ourselves up for, why am I still in this situation? Why am I still dealing with this? Whereas if you flip the script and you actually sat back and looked, like, wow, if I would have dealt with this like even 2 years ago, even 1 year ago, my reaction would have been like so much more different. But the person that I have become and the person that I am today is somebody that is not as reactive to certain circumstances, which, because it's not easy. It is not easy. And if people tell you that the whole spiritual process and ascension process is a cakewalk, then they're lying to you, because ascension is no walk in the park. Spirituality is no walk in the park. When you realize that there's something greater and bigger than you, and you start to reevaluate your life and look at what beliefs you've held and whether they actually align with who you are at this time, and you're kind of uncovering your whole entire life and your existence and who you thought you were, who you thought you should be, who you should be becoming, and stripping a lot of that stuff down to become the version of you that you are meant to be, without somebody else telling you what you should have been or should be or whatnot. So the process itself is not for the faint of heart, because it can strip you of everything that you thought was important to you, what you held dear, and you start to really truly look at what is actually important for you and what is actually in alignment with you. And alignment is, does it sit right? Like, for the longest time, you do things, or I know I would do things that would just be for people pleasing. Like, I would do it because, well, I can't let that person down, or, you know, I said I would, so I should. And even though it felt wrong, it felt off, it felt like, no, I shouldn't. When you go against your own intuitive nudge, and when you go against your own intuitive knowing, then you set yourself up for problems. But if you actually start to truly live in alignment with who you are, and it's not easy, like even now, it's really hard, and people don't quite understand why I don't like to plan things well in advance, why I don't have this plan for the future like other people would have. But when you realize that everything is so fluid and everything is always in flux, and to constantly put the pressure on to have something go a certain way, it doesn't, half the time it doesn't go as planned. Like, how many times would you have planned a get together with somebody? Okay, so you plan for something in 2 weeks, and you're excited when you first plan it, but the day comes, or the few days before comes, and things are starting to happen, and you're like, oh, like, I don't know if this plan is actually going to work, and I don't know if this is really what I should be doing right now. But you don't listen to it, and then you go out and it's not what you thought it would be, and you just feel like this just dread, and that's not where you want to go. Like, obviously sometimes you have to do things that you don't always want to do per se, especially if you're a parent and you're doing shit that you don't always want to do. But when you are actually trying to move forward and you're trying to do things that is more suited to who you are, then a lot of times you'll stop making big plans and just kind of go with the flow. Because I'd rather go and, like, if I get a friend and they're like, hey, let's meet up for coffee in like 10 minutes, I'll be like, hey, sure, why not? But if we plan this like hours in advance or days in advance, there's a good chance that something will come up and it won't happen, or it won't go as planned. And kind of one of the spiritual teachers that I enjoy listening to is Phil Good, and he coined the phrase living as a dot, or he very much embraces the living as a dot and not planning things in advance and just kind of being present. And when opportunities knock and when things arise, then you can go for it. If you feel a hell yeah, then you go for it. But if there's a little niggle and there's a little something that says don't make those plans just yet, don't set those things in stone, then it usually goes a lot smoother. But that's also a different kind of living where you're not set to a completely rigid schedule. And even this year I started homeschooling my kids, and not having a rigid set schedule has been nice for my kids to be able to, when you feel inspired to be able to do something, it's kind of nice, as opposed to feeling forced, because those are two completely different energies, when you feel forced rather than when you find that spark of joy and inspiration. But yeah, so things coming up from the past to be looked at, seeing where you are, reevaluating how far you've come, the strides that you've made, the progress that you've made. It's all there to be acknowledged and seen and appreciated, because we've now entered summer solstice. We're in a new season. Okay. So all that old stuff from that old season, that old cycle is ending, and it's now time to be able to cleanse away what now can't come with you in this new cycle and in this new season of your life. And we've got this huge rainstorm, and we had rain for the last few days, and it honestly feels like a very big cleanse. And Gaia, Mother Earth, however you want to call her, she is also facilitating a cleanse, as within, so without, as above, so below. So whatever you're doing within, on that deep spiritual level, on that level of that internal level, is starting to reflect on an external level as well. We're going to be having fruits and vegetables and all sorts of flowers, and there's bounty, and there's all that coming up and springing up to remind you that every season has something new to give. And so it's cleaning out and clearing out the old so that we can now bring in some of that newness that wants to really infuse our lives and this planet. So that was a long one. I'm going to attempt to post a little more regularly, maybe start posting more about my spiritual journey and my path towards becoming a better version of me. And hopefully that will encourage other people to continue on and do the same, because we are going to have a lot of people who are awakening to what has been going on in this world, and a lot of the deception and the old realities and paradigms are being uprooted because they are not based in a solid foundation. They are crumbling. So there's a lot of people that are going to start to question a lot of their life, if you haven't already. So it's not a conspiracy theory. It's about looking beyond what you're being told. So hope you have a fantastic day, and I look forward to catching up with you the next time. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll catch you on the flip side.